Thursday, President Trump took time to honor the tradition of calling service members currently deployed to wish them a happy holidays and to thank them for their service. Unfortunately, the president had to begin with some awful news.
I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. This heinous atrocity reminds us that we have no greater national security priority than ensuring that we have full control over the people that enter and remain in our country.
Yeah, it was reported yesterday that the suspect is now facing first-degree murder charges, and the other guardsman attacked 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, still fighting for his life.
Yeah, we're praying for him.
Absolutely.
So for more, we're joined by Pennsylvania State Senator Joe Picozzi, along with 2026 candidate for the U.S. House in Minnesota's 5th District, and former journalist Dalia Al-Akidi. We're also joined in studio all morning by our special guest, Republican strategist and author of Branding America, Noel Nikpour, and GOP strategist and founder of the Super Dough Market, Flip Pidot. A lot to get through there. Joe, let's start with you. Let's get your reaction to the horrible ambush that has left one guard member dead and one clinging to life.
It's absolutely tragic, especially during a holiday week like this. We're all praying for their families. We need to be careful about who we're letting into this country. We need proper vetting. We need to make sure we tone down the rhetoric as well, especially regarding our first responders and law enforcement.
Yeah, such a good point. You've got so much, from the Democrats that should never be spoken that I seem to have contributed to this moment. But we do know the suspect was a 29-year-old Afghan national, and this is being looked into as a terrorist act for sure. And now the Trump administration is announcing that it is halting all asylum decisions after a top immigration official said in a statement that the government must ensure that every alien is vetted and screened to the maximum degree. Dalia, what do you make of this decision by the administration?
I think it's a great decision. What happened, the tragedy in D.C. is a clear reminder that the Islamist radical terrorism still exists. And I would remind you that a few weeks ago, the FBI has folded another terrorist plot in Michigan. So we have to be very careful, and we have to call the spade. There is a radical Islamist movement in the United States, and we have to be courageous enough to call it the way it is and fight it. Yeah,
Noel, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, obviously, that program under the Biden administration that allowed so many Afghans to come into our country unvetted, I mean, that's got to be contributing, and thank God President Trump has recognized it. What are your thoughts?
Right. Well, I think that it's time that we crack down on it, and I think that President Trump is the person that can lead us to that point. And I think when you have a reminder of, some of the unhinged people that are here in our country that are doing this egregious crimes, I think that it's good that we are halting it. And I think President Trump had every right to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and just going back to the question of rhetoric, Joe, how big of a role do you think that has played in creating this heated environment that led us to this point where one National Guardsman is dead and one is fighting for his life?
We're still examining the motive of the shooter, and the facts are still coming out. But I can just even speak to civil society. We've gotten to a point where our rhetoric is making neighbors feel opposed to their neighbors. It's put us in a place where people can't get along with each other the way they used to, where communities feel divided, where people are worried about having conversations even over Thanksgiving dinner. So while we're still looking into the motive of the shooter and the facts are going to come out, the rhetoric's gotten to a place where it's become really destructive to civil society. And I think it's the responsibility of all elected leaders to work to build a new kind of civic discourse that brings people together.
Yeah, such a good point. Well, take a listen to this coverage of the shooting. We'll get some response there.
Yeah.
Their presence is also under question, whether it's legal. Last week, a federal judge ruled the Trump administration's deployment of the National Guard in D.C. was unlawful.
But the Trump administration is standing by this policy of deploying National Guard troops to cities, saying that it's necessary to combat crime. As Tom just articulated, there's a lot of dispute about that.
Yeah, that was from MS Now, formerly MSNBC. Dalia, why is the first instinct here from the left to criticize the National Guard?
This is the narrative that we've been listening to and we've been hearing, especially when they talk about immigrants and when they talk about certain communities. What's happening is not something, it's not a decision against race or religion, it's about national security. And the way the Democrats and the way the left, they would want to support or want to gain votes in every election by telling them that the Republicans or the other side hates you, the other side wants you out, and that's clearly why what happened in D.C. happened yesterday. I've lived in D.C. for 20 years, and I don't see why anybody would be against having the National Guards or any security forces to make this city safe.
It has been a major success, President Trump's efforts in D.C. Crime has come down over 40%, but we're still hearing also more rhetoric from the left talking about the National Guard, that they're not needed there, that they're really not doing anything, which leads me to think they think Sarah Beckstrom's life she died in vain. Flip, your reaction to a lot of this with respect to the National Guard, their role, and why, you know, at this time, Secretary Hegseth is sending over 500 more members in.
Right. Well, the rhetoric clearly, not just among the general public, but media, elected officials on both sides, is obviously completely toxic. And you get lip service after an event like this, but nothing really changes. And I think the instinct of those who don't like Trump or are on the left in the media, elected officials, to say whatever Trump's doing is sort of by definition illegal. Let's not let it wind its way through the courts, whether it's ICE activities or National Guard deployments. Let's simply say this is on its face illegal, on its face immoral, and we as a country, we as the actual Guards members or military members should basically revolt and decide on our own that we don't like these things, or we find them improper and illegal, and therefore take matters into our own hands. You don't want to necessarily blame a murderous act on a policymaker, but it's not that surprising that when you're basically telling people to take up arms, or to take matters into your own hands, that some will follow that.
It's a good point, Flip. So I do want to pivot here for a minute to Fani Willis's election interference case against President Trump, which has now been completely dismissed. President Trump reacted to it on Truth Social, saying, in part, law and justice have prevailed in the great state of Georgia as the corrupt Fani Willis witch hunt against me and other great American patriots has been dismissed. The few remaining Democrat witch hunts will soon meet the same embarrassing end. Joe, is the lawfare campaign against the president, are we finally seeing it come to an end, sir?
I think it's important that all cases are prosecuted fairly, that there's no regard to somebody's political affiliation, political standing. As the details come to light, it makes sense that they decide to move on from this case. But I think it's important that we have a judicial system that's transparent and doesn't regard people's politics in making judicial legal decisions.
Good point. Well, we appreciate you, Joe Picozzi, Dalia Al-Akidi. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Dalia? I want to get it right.
Dalia Al-Akidi.
Al-Akidi. All right, there it is. My Oklahoma accent gets in the way of good names a lot of times.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next hour as well. But thank you for our in-studio guests also.